Exit 12 is not affiliated with any 12-step group or outside organizations. The purpose of this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. No person or organization is receiving any monetary gain from the recording, production, or distribution of this podcast. All hosts and guests are participating of their own free will and are only sharing their own personal experiences. Subjects discussed in this podcast may be triggering for some individuals. Listeners' discretion advised. All right, welcome to Exit 12. I am your host, Bryan Fields, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Michelle Parker and Isaac Smolden.
Yay. Missed you last time.
Yeah, I'm back. I'm back, baby.
Maggie did great.
Yeah, thank you, Maggie, for stepping in. Just been a crazy couple weeks trying to get everything going. So, some of those things that we're getting going is our new residential services. If you are in need of homeless or at-risk youth services, please come to my house at 300 North Willow Street in downtown Wasilla. And today, the long-awaited debut of our star guest.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Lordy.
Odessa. Oh, Lordy. Welcome, Odessa.
She's back.
Guess who's back?
Back again. Mm-hmm.
Wait, you were here before?
Step one.
You were here for
Step two.
No.
Step two?
Step
Ashton was
two.
step
Who can
Step
remember?
three?
Step
Was it step
three.
three?
I'm pretty sure it was step 3.
Step
Oh, I thought this
three.
was your first episode.
Okay.
No.
No.
Please,
Okay.
Please forgive us. We're a little challenged.
Well, we've made it all the way from step 3
Ish.
ish to 3-ish,
Roughly.
wherever you were.
Yeah. I know it wasn't 4, so
Okay.
smooth, so.
There we go. At least we know where it wasn't.
We've made so much progress since the last time you were here.
Yeah,
Absolutely. You guys have come a long way.
we have, especially Isaac. Isaac has learned how to make amends,
Yeah.
and he's learned that he is selfish.
No, well, so I was just going to say, Odessa was with us in Juneau when we did our Juneau trip because we had 3 members of the youth board of directors there. And she can attest that I was walking around Juneau using the phrase selfish, self-centered, and self-seeking a lot. So she knows and I know, okay?
Down packed. It was hilarious.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. So this podcast is working.
Yes.
So it's doing what it's supposed to do.
Exactly. This is really just so that I could face my own entertainment. It's a whole ploy.
We're glad we could help, Isaac. We're glad we
thank
could
you.
help.
Yeah, I do believe that there's a Workaholics Anonymous.
Ooh.
Oh.
Don't
there
tell
you
his
go.
wife that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. How many jobs do you have? You have 2?
3.
Three
That's-
jobs.
I mean, but they're all fun. They're all fun
not
jobs.
bad.
I love all
They're
my
fun
jobs.
jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get to be
We
here
all
doing
wear
this.
multiple hats
I get
here.
to work doing play-by-play. I get to ref. I love all that. All that
Heck
stuff's
yeah.
great. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. Anyway,
I
step
don't know why
1.
we're taking
Yeah.
Isaac's inventory right now.
Probably
Good
we should have
point.
taken that inventory a couple steps ago, shouldn't we?
Probably not
Yeah.
do that.
Okay.
So we have made it to step 11, which is sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. Bum, bum, bum.
Why is that bum, bum, bum? That's good.
Ta-da.
Aren't we all? We're happy about these last 3 steps. There's nothing scary in here necessarily.
So these last 3 steps, right? Like these are maintenance steps just as much as steps 1 through 3 are. So you
Yeah.
have to do them constantly. It's
Mhm.
not like steps, 4 through 9,
Yeah.
where you can just kind of
You're just going through you're like
You're just
going
doing
through it.
stuff. And like, so if you slack on any of these,
You feel it.
You feel it.
You
in
feel
your
it and you
soul.
fall back and you become
And
you're
selfish
like-
and self-centered.
And
Yeah.
self-seeking.
Yeah.
Self-seeking.
You found like a new way to live, and so now when you're not living that way, that Zach is driving me crazy. My ADHD brain can't handle it. So no, you keep it in.
You can't handle the truth.
Okay, maybe cut it a little bit.
So with all the steps,
But anyways, what I'm trying to say is that like when you get to this step, you are grown accustomed to living a certain way, and when you deviate from that, it is very uncomfortable
mm-hmm.
and feels icky.
I guess that's how I would describe it.
Bad.
Bad.
Feels bad.
Yeah.
I think
don't
Linda would pull out the feelings wheel and maybe
Yeah.
ask us to expound a
identify.
little bit. Identify
Yeah.
on what part of bad.
Elaborate.
Yes.
Elaborate, please. Yeah.
I mean, all the steps are designed so that you do them and ultimately you feel better. But 10 through 12, we're actively doing them, and that is providing relief on a consistent basis, correct?
Yeah.
So I imagine that, well, the first question I had is like all the way back, we were doing this with Odessa. It was step 3. All the way back, we were talking about establishing that relationship with our higher power. And now we are improving our conscious contact with God. So I guess my question is, why is it important to really work step 3, establish that relationship, and then how does that translate to now all the way down the road, actively improving that relationship with our higher power?
Well, I think it's like any relationship that you have in your life. I mean, when you have the intimacy that you do with your higher power, where you're talking to them on a daily basis, it could be, take your higher power, the metaphorical, whatever that looks like, and put it into a realistic human being. Think of it like your wife. You talk to your wife every single day. You have that level of intimacy, and just because you don't talk, if you were to stop talking to her, if you were to stop checking up on her, seeing how she's doing, eventually you will grow distant, and you won't be able to maintain the closeness and the intimacy that you had, or be able to trust her. She wouldn't be able to trust you, and vice versa.
I think she would intervene before God does. She'd be like, "Hey, what's going on?" My wife's a very direct person.
Yeah.
But yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, like, God, he's direct in his own way. Like, he interacts with me and like, okay, you don't want to talk to me, you're going to feel really uncomfy for a while. And then you're going to have XYZ happen. When XYZ happens, you're going to be really uncomfy about it because you don't have that connection. So,
Yeah. I think also, too, like, when I don't have that connection with my higher power, I definitely fall back into self and I start, like, nitpicking my life, and I just become like this insane, crazy person again. And it's just like I'm just unhappy and unfulfilled, and it's just not fun. It's not a fun place to be.
Yeah.
To not have that, you know.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
definitely relate with that. I think more so is I start focusing on everything around me and everybody else.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And like taking everybody else's inventory and like what's wrong with the whole world
Yeah.
and how I could fix it if only they would. And then I'm like, oh my God, self-will is coming back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think it's just like one of those things where I also really like this step because it's one of those things where it's like, you know, I've said it in earlier steps where, you know, you go through treatment programs and different things, bro, that is going to kill
Okay.
you.
oh my gosh.
I think it's mine.
No, it's all of ours.
All of them.
Hang on.
It's a collective. Yeah, I hear the static on one side of my headphone.
It was good at first.
Is that both?
That is both.
Both.
Okay, let's try that for a second.
Okay, everybody don't move.
Don't breathe.
So what do you like about this step, Bryan?
I just really like just the intention of like the continued reflection and work and sorry, we're having some technical difficulties, people. But just like the job's not done, you know what I mean? And like the continued maintenance is just so like important to me because I don't like the aspect of like the behavioral health field where it's like, you know, we have identified that it takes, you know, people that reach 5 years of recovery have a significantly higher chance of remaining sober for their lifetime. But we tailor all of our services around 90, 60, 30, 6 months, a year, right? And then you have these these things in place where it's like, okay, now I've created all these connections with you. I can't talk to you for I can't talk to you for the next 2 years minimum.
Yeah.
Right. And that just like super frustrates me.
Yeah.
And I don't understand that method or like I don't know. I think it's a money thing, but we can get in that another time. But with this, it's like there is no certificate, and it's about me continuing to grow and continuing to improve and continuing not only to improve, but to get outside of myself. Right. And so, I mean, like for me, that's why I super love this stuff.
So with, I guess my question on a lot of the other ones was it was always like, what makes this step difficult? What makes this step so challenging? Like, I imagine that with this step, there are some days where you really want to do this and you're feeling good. And then there's other days where it is not as easy. So what kind of drives that? What makes this step easier some days than others? I mean, there's a lot of obviously there's a lot of reasons.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
That's kind of a loaded question.
For
but
sure.
just in general, I would say, like, why?
I think it's easy when everything is going right. You know what I mean? It's easy to kind of just, you've built up this routine. It's more challenging when things start going sideways, because my brain and the way that I think, I'm like, see, look, here's evidence. This doesn't work. You guys are dumb. I don't need to do this. Right. And so it's really challenging for me when everything. Did we just?
Yeah, I just took it out because I told Ozzy the wrong channel. So go ahead.
I don't hear nothing.
I know.
Because
then the
that
static's
was the
gone.
intention.
That was my
Oh.
intention. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, why do I need to wear these then?
Because continuity.
Okay.
So in the next one, it looks
But
like
not-
we aren't having technical
Okay.
difficulties.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man. God grant me that. Let's do the serenity prayer real quick.
That's the thing. So we cannot change the things, change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yes, amen.
So for
Amen.
me, it's kind of what Bryan's saying. It's almost like when things are going wrong and when things are getting rough, I tend to reach out to my higher power more. And then if it's going good, like I don't always feel the need to be like, yay, praise Jesus, love him. He's like, great, awesome, love that. But sometimes when I'm self-doubting and when I'm in fear or when I'm really angry, or it's mostly for me, it's when people don't act the way that I think that they should act, and I'm not having a super good step 3 moment where I'm not letting God be the director. I'm trying to manage and control them. And they don't show up the way that I want to show up. I'm just like, see, God, you're wrong. Or, I'm just like, or I'm just like, what am I doing wrong? Why am I not taking the steps that God wants me to take? Am I not doing the things that he's expecting of me? Because, that is a problem, with a lot of religion and spirituality that people face in their own walks with that. And if you're not having that conscious contact, you're not going to be able to hear whoever your higher power is as well. In my own experience, that's true. And I know that it's true in other people's too, that I've heard. So,
yeah. Yeah, I think I could relate with when everything's going right. We're maintaining a lot of things in our lives. Like it's a little bit easier to maintain step 11, but when things are going wrong, I know for me, like if things are going wrong, I don't want to listen to anybody. I don't want to listen to you. I don't want to listen to him. I don't want to listen to my higher power because I want things to go my way. You know?
You want
and
to control that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something that I struggled with from time to time, and but there's something that I've learned to practice within myself when things aren't going right, and like it feels like my life is falling apart and my everything's going in flames and everything. I'm like, I take a moment and I'm like, God, I don't understand, but I'm going to trust you because you have a plan and I know you're going to work it out regardless. And that's something that I've been practicing for the past 6 months. And it's really encouraged me to really accept and lean into my higher power instead of taking that control and then being impulsive and making decisions and doing all these things. And then it just burns everything else down, and it's just a little easier to live that way, to rest in something bigger than you, than relying on yourself.
So to add to that, the knowledge of his will portion, that stands out to me as kind of a guard against that. Jesus took the wheel, but sometimes just want to reach
Take
over
that
and
back,
take that. Jesus, I actually think I can take the wheel for a
There's
second.
this guy
Give me the wheel, Jesus.
There's this guy I was in treatment with, and he talks about his higher power being like this dude, and like he just like looks as a hippie, and he drives this Lincoln around, and he's
Like
like I'm
Matthew
just like
McConaughey?
and he's like yeah, like Lincoln Lawyer, and he was like, and I'm just like along for the ride, but then every once in a while I grab that bleep and throw him in the trunk and hit the highway speeding down the road, and I'm like, oh dang, yeah, I get that. I know how that is, you know what I mean?
So the knowledge of his will and the power to carry that out, as opposed to the power to carry out what my will.
Yeah, because it's super hard to be like, you know what I mean? Like, I have things that I want to do, and being like kind of directed in a different direction, right? So it's like I have to go back to that step one and be willing to surrender and be like, and that's super hard, especially like the further, for me anyways, the further along I've gotten in my recovery, because I'm like, bro, what do you mean? Like, I feel like I'm smart enough.
Well, that's the other question I had, is how has this step changed, kind of year over year as you get further along into your recovery journey?
So it's funny because a few podcasts back I was talking about, like, sometimes I'll pray to my higher power, and then I'll get an answer, but it's not what I wanted, and then I'm like,
That's not what I meant.
Yeah, and it's definitely it's frustrating, stepping back into that and admitting that you don't have it under control. Yeah.
And having to choose to actively let that go, your idea, and not just run with it, because then you're taking the wheel back. And I wanted to touch a little bit on how we talk a lot about prayer. We don't always talk about the end meditation portion. Like, sometimes I feel like in the rooms, you kind of get it they smush it together. But I think it's important to remember that when we have busy lives, when we are getting the blessings and the promises from the program, when we don't always have time to just woo-saw and like chill and actually try to hear God. I think that's why it's important to sit down and have that meditation time, just to be able to clear your mind out and be able to not think about anything, so you can appreciate and have gratitude and utilize that.
Yeah, and I also think that, up to this point, you've been directed to kind of start your day and end your day with prayer and meditation, right?
Yeah.
And then at least for me, I got caught in this cycle of like, those were my times. You know what I mean? Like, those are the times that I talk to God, and those are the times that I meditate. And it was just like, but what happens at 12 o'clock when crisis happens and Bryan's not acting appropriately? And you know what I mean? Do I wait till I go to bed and do my reflection? No, man. Like, I take a minute and I meditate, and like every day I go home, like I feel like a weirdo because I turn everything off, and it's like my meditation home. And then, I'll get to my driveway and it's like as simple as like, thank you, God. And, whatever, I trust you, whatever you have for me this is what it's going to be.
Which is good, because if I'm being an at 11 o'clock in the morning, I shouldn't continue to be an asshole to my coworkers the rest of the day. Like, well, guess God's going to have to fix that when I get home, because I can relate to that a little bit, because, sometimes when having a challenge at work or stressed out about, like in December, we were fortunate enough to be able to buy a house, and there was all the moving that came with that, and the frickin' painting, dude, the 16-hour long days of just painting. And I'm like about to have a complete mental breakdown, and just to step back and be like, wow, what an insanely good problem to have. Like, how blessed am I to even be like faced with this challenge that's driving me crazy? Like, wow, this is actually such a great opportunity. And just like putting everything in a perspective, because even when things are going right, it's almost easier to complain about problems that, when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, are really not problems.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
and so I felt like, just in my personal life, outside of, working the steps, this step, the conscious portion, I think, Michelle, you just talked to that a little bit, just getting better at, when I'm getting frustrated, just being like, okay, like this is an opportunity to just
PP, brother.
What was that now?
You gotta be.
No, run that by me again.
Yeah. The old. So I met him. He took over for Nugent's Ranch. He was this tall 6'4" guy, older guy from, Hawaii, and but he was like, I think at that time he was like almost like 40 years in recovery or something like that. But he used to come up and he would talk to us and be like, and me specifically, because I was super hot-headed. And he'd be like, you just got to pee-pee, brother. Pee-pee all over yourself. And I was like, what?
Oh, Lordy.
It was his
Can you
way.
say what it stands for? Because at this point,
I'm getting there.
Okay.
And I would always look at him super funny, and he'd be like, pause and pray.
okay.
Yeah.
Now we can leave it in.
Yeah.
Example, for a while when I first got out of prison and I was just getting into this position here, like my role was very slow.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was very slow, and I was like talking about like how slow it was. I feel like I'm not really being useful, and I was like praying to my higher power, like I want to be useful, and then I started getting all of these things within this position, and then like work started changing, and I wasn't happy with that change, and like I run the garden, but I also help run the cafe too, and I worked the cafe 10 years ago. And I was talking to my sponsor about this, and I was like, I've already done this before. I feel like I'm already overqualified in this, and I do all these other things and everything. And then like I had a moment with her, and then she was like, yeah, so that right there is a little bit of ego. You have a little bit of inflated ego because you feel like you're overqualified. I'm like,
yeah, my sponsor likes to call me a special little snowflake when I act like that. She's just like, okay, Odessa's special. That's what I hear right now. And then I'm just like, ooh, baby, I'm not. Wait, what do you mean? I'm being serious right now. I have problems. And she's like, no, you don't. Get over yourself. That's great.
Yeah, that's a really good example too. And like, that's the other part about this step is improving that conscious contact rate. But you have to be willing to receive what he's giving you.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, you got to keep your eyes open and definitely be careful what you ask
it's
for.
the old cliche of don't pray for patience, because God's going to give you an opportunity to be patient.
Yeah, for sure. But, with the last couple of months of me in this new position with everything and doing everything else and stuff, like I definitely have learned a lot of acceptance with it. And there's moments where I'm just like, I'm frustrated and I don't want to do certain things, but I'm just like, I don't understand, but I'm going to trust you because I know this is going to have a better end goal than just making that impulsive decision, because, good things take time. It does. It really does. And it's pretty cliche, but it does take time for good things in your life, because easy things are easy to fall apart.
Yeah. And I think you're kind of touching on my last question, which is the difference between the knowledge of his will and the power to carry it out. And we've kind of been, I mean, we've been talking about this kind of the whole time, but just because I know what his will is does not necessarily mean that I want to execute on his will. And so that second, I can see how that second portion is very important to this step as well.
So I used to get really tripped up about that, and I still can. Trying to figure out what God's will is to begin with. Who am I as this little tiny human to determine what God's will is in my life? And what my sponsor talked to me about, she was like, okay, so what God's will for us is just the next right indicated action. And what that means is, it's not going to hurt you. It's not going to hurt somebody else. All around, it's just a good step. It's got good morals around it. And, it's not going to step on anybody's toes, and it reflects back on step 3. Step 11 and step 3 are really hand in hand. When I started step 3, when I started step 4, that's when my sponsor was like, hey, start praying on step 11 so you can practice this. Because having the acceptance to not do the impulsive thing, not do what your addict or alcoholic mentality tells you to do, which is just, I need to do whatever makes me feel better, and have that selfish, self-centered, self-seeking mindset. Just choose
instant gratification.
Like maybe I want to, I want to go to a meeting, but I don't want to go talk to people. I'm being selfish if I don't go to that meeting, because then I'm not allowing myself, like if God's like, go to this meeting and you need to go talk to people, not in like a disembodied voice way, but you get that feeling of like, I should probably go to that meeting. They got medication for that. I don't think they really have programs, but if that's just, a thing, and I don't, but like, oh, I don't want to go to that meeting, but I know that God's will for me is to continue to work in recovery and to continue to be a sober support, and be the person that was for somebody else that was for me. So like sponsorship and being an example of what recovery can look like in all aspects of my life. And I do not want to do it all the time, but I do it.
Yeah.
So
I think with prayer, like that's the biggest thing that I ask for, is that power to carry it out. 'Cause it's hard. Like I have grown accustomed to living a lifestyle a certain way, right? And that is a lifestyle of being selfish and self-centered. And it's what can I get from you, and all of those different type of things. And, especially in the beginning, trying to challenge that and do that next right indicated action isn't always easy. And it's not something that I'm accustomed to. And so it felt super uncomfortable. I remember like in the beginning when I would go to meetings, they would talk about this stuff, what I just said about, you live outside the realm of how you've been living now and you feel uncomfortable. Well, for me in those moments still, I was uncomfortable with doing the right thing. So like going to the meetings felt uncomfortable. Like talking to people felt uncomfortable. Like all of those things felt super, super uncomfortable. And so if you're in this step, I think like the key thing that I would add, in praying for his will is the power to carry that out, because it is uncomfortable, and it's okay that it's uncomfortable. There's nothing wrong with you because it's uncomfortable, right? Like you're not broken because these people over here make it look easy and they can just do it and talk to people and do all of these things. Like you are trying to learn a whole new way to live. And that takes time, and it's okay not to just be like, yeah, I'm in it, and I have concerns, and be honest about that, because I have concerns if like you just jump in and you're like, yeah, it's great, it's fantastic all the time. I'm like, okay, either you're lying or you're like an anomaly. You know what I mean? Like that's just, I just don't know how you go from living the lifestyle that we live on, and just be like, you know what, today I'm going to be a good human being. Like it just doesn't work that way. How many times, like even, I'm approaching 7 years sober, and it's like, I still like have thoughts where it's like, what did you just say to me? You know what I mean? I'm serious. And I have to like track, like, whoa, Bryan, where are you going with that? You know what I mean? Like chill that out. Right. Or, like somebody will say something and I want to like lash out, or, all that type of stuff. Right. And so I need my higher power to give me the power to be able to do the things that I know that I need to be doing to live the life that I want to live today.
Yeah, that sense of peace that we've been searching for all our lives, and is what we we have tried to use alcohol to fulfill that, but it never fulfilled it, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think that prayer and meditation really helps soothe that aspect, because we're so used to chaos and living that chaotic life. But like when we're in peaceful moments and stuff, like it's unusual to us.
Yeah.
But
It's weird. We were just talking about that earlier.
yeah, it
Yeah.
definitely is. But then like once we start doing this, you kind of live a more slower life.
Mhm.
And it's so nice, like super nice now.
Mhm.
And you don't have to look over your shoulder all the time, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's part of that promise, right? You get to have peace, joy, and serenity.
Mhm.
And for me, like, I'm not always going to be joyful. I'm not always going to be at peace. But if I can get to a place of contentment, that is my serenity.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I'm in self-will, that peace can really look like I'm not doing enough, I'm not working enough, or I'm not doing XYZ right. And that's when I just have to let go and let God and just accept, you know, like you were saying. So
Yeah.
Are those extravagant promises?
we think not.
I know things now.
Yeah. Can we
You're an
touch
insider.
on like meditation really quick? Because I know that when I first got in the rooms and I seen this like prayer and meditation thing, and like my sponsor was telling me to meditate, every time all I envisioned was like a Buddhist monk, like outside a temple, like, I will not drink or eat water for 30 days.
Very avatar of you.
Yeah.
Like, what is meditation to you guys?
Meditation for me is there's a couple different ways that I meditate.
Mhm.
So there's the whole shutting everything down. I'm just in my zone. I don't have any extra media going on. Like I'm not listening to a podcast. I don't have music going on. I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting and I'm focusing. Another way that I meditate is I will journal to God. So I can't always just sit still. My brain just goes too fast sometimes. Or I need to do something or I'll get distracted. So I love journaling to my higher power because then I can stay focused on getting this stuff out. And I'm also moving and I'm being intentional with my time. If I don't have that attention span to just sit. So
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, meditation, like every morning I say the third step prayer in my head, and then I'll lay there for like 5 minutes. Just peace. There's been times where I fell back to sleep.
A little too much peace.
Meditation is not sleeping.
Yeah, but there's also other times too where like being out in nature, that's one of the biggest things that I love doing, that I miss doing because I don't do it as often anymore. But being out in nature and just listening to the birds and the wind and everything, that's one of my favorite meditations. But another one is walking home. I walk a lot because I can't drive right now. And one of the things that I have to accept is walking or taking an Uber. And so a lot of times I'll walk home and I'll just look at everything around me, cars, the trees, the kids running, people biking, you know, the snow underneath my shoes, you know, the ice crunching. And like, I just notice all those different things and I appreciate those things. And those are something that I find to be grateful for. You know, I try to look for that gratitude in my meditation. And I think that helps me rest in that. And then it attracts abundance, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge thing with my meditation. For that.
Yeah, I would just say it's just it's what works for you, you know, and the idea behind meditation, I believe, is really just to like release, you know, and let go and just be for a minute, you know, especially when you get to this step, most likely life is starting to life and you're caught up in the day to day and you're doing all the things. And it's really important to just take that time to just, especially if you're like me and have a million thoughts all the time. And it's like, oh, look, that water. Oh, hey, but I'm like trying to talk, you know what I mean? And so it's important for me to take time to be able to just like, all right, I'm not thinking about anything. And then I can formulate thoughts better and all of those different type of things. And so Yeah, and you can do it at any time is really like the big thing that I would say too, is it's not just when you feel like I get up or I'm going to bed or anything like that. But yeah, so last question is, what would you guys tell somebody approaching this step for the first time? What would your advice be to them?
Progress, not perfection.
Mm,
You're not going to magically be this person who's in constant prayer, like on your knees, bowing down. Like you're gonna have to have grace for yourself when you notice yourself slipping, and just get back on it. So,
yeah.
I think it's okay to let go.
And let God.
Let
If
go
we
and
could
let
just,
go.
we just like, I mean, it's to the point where every cliche, it's in every episode.
Yeah.
yeah.
But they're there
Yeah.
for a reason.
It really
Yeah.
is, though. You know, like I think all our lives probably were so clung on to it, so uptight and everything, but it's okay to just
Yeah.
let it all go.
Yeah. And I guess I would say, if you've made it to this step and you're enjoying the way that you're starting to feel and the way that you're starting to live, continue doing this step, because it's going to get better. And I remember getting to this step and feeling like, yeah, I'm good, dude. Like, life is good. And I would have sold myself short if I had just stopped there. You know what I mean? Like, my life is beyond my wildest dreams today. And a lot of that I owe to my higher power and continuing to do that self-reflection. And so it may seem tedious or like, I don't have time for that. It's lots of things you can give yourself excuses for. But it's really important. It's really important for your continued growth. And I would also say it, you know, really break that step down for yourself. You know, it's as we understood him, and we're at this point, we're praying for knowledge of his will and the power to carry that out. So yeah, that's my final thoughts. All right. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being here and joining us. Thank you, Odessa, for returning for step 11. That's all the time we have. I'm your host, Bryan Fields. As always, Michelle Parker, Isaac Smolden. We'll see you guys next time.
Last step, step 12.
Step 12 coming hot.